My name is Rebecca Johnson. I am one of the hosts of a podcast called Supergirl Radio. I also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/duckmilkpride, where I talk about the Snyderverse, including Zack Snyder's Justice League, and a lot of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice content. I'm kind of obsessed with that film. So I do a lot of that, and so if you want to check me out, follow me there. And I'm here with my buddy Sark. Sark, you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Sark Sarkeesian, and I think I jokingly said it in an earlier panel that I do not have a YouTube channel or a podcast, but something I would love to do. But my cred is that I am just a bona fide Batman fan. I always describe myself as having suffered a severe Batman bias, so much so that I look at Zack Snyder's Justice League as subtitled Batman and His Best Friends. But Batman drugged me into the world of DC, and that's why I have an incredible appreciation for the characters. And I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I feel like in so many ways that my perspective, I speak like an every fan. Oftentimes, I know that no one person can have the corner on opinion, but I feel like I can help represent that voice out there that sometimes doesn't get heard when it comes to some of our favorite properties, especially in the DC universe. So yeah, that's who I am, and that's my lovely wife, Benita, down there.
Everybody's going to go to Benita. Hang on to Batman and His Best Friends.
Sure.
We're gonna come back to that.
Okay.
So the premise of this panel was just to have a lot of fun. So the issue with HBO Max seems to be that they don't like to make money, is what I've determined. Because they have a big hit with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and they seem to want to shut down Zack Snyder's universe of DC characters, lovingly called the Snyderverse. But fans on the internet have started a hashtag restore the Snyderverse to try to get more of the Snyderverse on HBO Max, because that would be a great place for it. You wouldn't have to spend a huge amount of money on a film that would get released in theaters. You could just do a little something on HBO Max and use that as a way to get more subscribers. So if they liked money, they would restore the Snyderverse.
Yes.
But since they seem to be having trouble coming up with ideas on how to do that, I thought it might be fun to have a little discussion about how we would do it if we could continue the Snyderverse. So I think one thing we could talk about is maybe Batman and his best friends. So if you could do a Ben Affleck Batman show or film or something like that, let's workshop how that could be done. What would you want to do with Ben Affleck's Batman if you could continue his story?
Well, in light of the fact that Warner Brothers has decided that they're going to go with Robert Pattinson for their theatrical Batman, and I have no problem with that. I'm actually looking very forward to the film. I think that, by the way, that's one of the keys to this. I think Warner Brother executives, the shirts, need to understand we love it all.
Yeah,
We'll support it all. Don't slap us in the face, though, because we might not support some of the other stuff you want us to get behind if you blatantly ignore us. However, I think you could carve out a beautiful niche on HBO Max. So often, people say in protest, well, Ben Affleck has said he's done with the role. Please understand, though, he said he was done with the role at a certain place in time. He was going through a lot of personal trauma. His divorce was right after that, I believe. I think he's in a better place. He has said yes to reshoots with Zack Snyder's Justice League.
That's right.
He's said yes to the role in the Flash movie. I think when the circumstances are right and he's healthy, and if he doesn't feel like the properties are being disrespected, that he would be on board, especially a Batman that has dignity, that's executed well. So I think you could have something like a limited run. We spoke earlier in this room of a shortened series. The quality level of, say, like a 10-episode series for HBO Max, where you explore the script that originally was supposed to be the Batman.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about that. So originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, the original idea back when at least when Justice League was originally being shot, the premise of that was that Batman and Deathstroke were going to go at it. They were going to fight each other, but Batgirl was also supposed to be part of that film as well. I would have loved that.
Oh, who would have, yes.
So would you want to see that
I would love
come
to
to
see
fruition?
that. Whether you, yeah, there's so many ways you could go about this. You could have an HBO Max only exclusive content, because they need more of that. Exclusive content movie. You could actually do the movie as an HBO Max special or original, and then a series after that, or that you could have spin-off series. I believe Affleck would be on board, and we've already heard from Joe Manganiello that he would love to be part of a Deathstroke series that could splinter off from a movie event. Likewise, even though it's not directly tied in, it is part of that established universe. Harry Lennox has gone on record to say that he would love to reprise that role in an ongoing fashion, and wow, no one else could bring gravitas to that role like Harry Lennox.
Oh my gosh, I would love to see. I mean, we get a little Martian Manhunter on the Supergirl TV series, but his story, I don't know, was explored completely, and even in the final season, they like kind of forgot how many daughters he had. Like, he had 2 daughters. You're talking like he only had 1. Y'all need to revisit the show history. So sometimes they don't do as good of a job with Martian Manhunter, although David Harewood is excellent, but the writing sometimes doesn't do him any favors. So I would love to see a show that really explores Martian Manhunter, his entire mythology, his brother, Mars, all the stuff that went in there with the green Martians versus the white Martians. You could really do it up. And even if they wanted to connect it to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, they could show like how he came to Earth, how did he get into, you know, he goes into politics, he becomes, you know, I think in Batman v Superman, he's like the Secretary of Defense. He climbs the ladder.
Yes, he's moving his way up.
So I would love to see, like, how does he get from Mars to Secretary of Defense? I want to know that story.
What's he been doing all this time? Yes.
Yeah.
And two, I'm deviating just a little bit because I don't
No,
want
this is
to
a
leave
pitch meeting. We're brainstorming.
this topic.
No, there are no bad ideas in brainstorming.
Maybe it needs to be said, and I sometimes my humor tends toward sarcasm, and it's not so subtle, but I wanted to preface my comments by saying also Marvel might want to explore the option of expanding their cinematic universe by putting on streaming exclusive series, short-run series that evolve their characters beyond where, oh, I'm sorry, they're doing that, aren't they? I'm sorry. Yes, that's that sarcasm sneaking out. So we've already
I was like, where are you
seen.
going with this? Don't you know about those shows that are on Disney Plus?
So we see it's profitable. There's a demand for it, and of course they have years of the movies. Their continuity, the continued universe, their shared universe, doing so much of the heavy lifting, so that now these characters that 10 years ago people said, who is that? Well, what are they about? Now people feel invested into them, and so they're willing to support the series. Warner Brothers, DC, is starting out with characters that everyone knows already. So much of the heavy lifting has been done by Richard Donner, and by Tim Burton, and by Joel Schumacher, and by Christopher Nolan, so that when Zack Snyder comes along, it really, he was continuing the trend and the history of establishing these characters so that people already knew them, already were invested in them. But anyway, going back to Batman and Ben Affleck, yes, give me a movie, I'll support it. Do we subscribe to HBO Max, sweetheart?
We absolutely do.
Yes, we do. And why did we start subscribing to HBO Max?
Because of DC Batman.
Yes, and because of Zack Snyder Justice League coming.
Yeah,
Yes.
the day they announced that it was going to be on HBO Max, I went, okay, HBO Max, subscribe.
Same here.
So I've been a subscriber since that, because I wanted them to know it was
Yes.
that announcement that made me sign up.
Yes.
Right. Are you watching? Are you listening? But yes, give me the movie. Give me a good 2-hour movie, 2.5-hour movie, and then give me a 6 episode series, or give me a 10-episode series.
So let me pitch this to you. So Death in the Family is a very big Batman story with the death of Robin. We know that Robin is dead in the DCEU.
Yes.
I think we have confirmation that it's Dick Grayson
Yes.
as the Robin who was
Yes.
dead in this one. So would you be interested in a live action portrayal of showing that, something akin to that story?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, I would love to see that. I would love to see that take. And it doesn't matter if Titans is exploring some of those options, or that's been done in the animated field. People are demonstrating that they're hungry for more content like this, and they can handle more than one Bruce Wayne. They can handle more than one Batman. They get it. It can be a challenge to some people at first, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm confused. Is this part of that same universe? But once they get past that, then they're on board generally.
Yeah, that's so funny. A long time ago, Warner Brothers really hesitated with that.
Very protective.
They would not allow, I think on Smallville, they had a character named Adam Knight that they wanted to be Batman, but they couldn't call him Batman.
I've heard of that, yes.
Because, and he was like a ninja guy, like he knew all these moves. And so that was because I think at that point, I think Warner Brothers was trying to do some sort of Batman something or other. And so they wouldn't let them play with those characters, and it's the most bizarre thing. Now they're a little better about it because they had Henry Cavill on the films, and then they had Tyler Hoechlin on the TV, on the small screen. So they're a little bit better about that now, and I think audiences are not stupid. We can figure these things out. We can kind of roll with it. So I think they're now, many decades later, they're starting to figure that out.
Starting to catch up.
So I think that would be really cool because we know that Robin was dead in Batman v Superman. So it would be neat to see that story. And we've kind of got little bits and pieces in there because like Joker and Zack Snyder Justice League sort of acknowledges it. So I think it's possible you could do something like that if you wanted to continue it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be difficult for someone with Zack Snyder's creativity. And then there are other directors that can come in.
Oh yeah.
And take the mantle, certainly.
Yeah, I think there are lots of things you can do. So if you're just joining us, we're just having a little fun pitching ideas for how HBO Max could continue the Snyderverse, the DCEU, whether it be TV series on HBO Max or films. So if you have any ideas, shout them out. We'll talk about them. Yeah.
All right. So going back to that, I will say that when you're doing the storylines and now going back to that one, obviously you don't want to be. All right. So going back to what you said about the storylines, I think. Look, if you overplay a certain storyline so many times, obviously even audience, you have to admit, I don't care if you love the storyline, I don't care if they do make small changes. If you repeat the storyline over and over again,
people want to see different things, certainly. Yes.
Yeah, you have to. It's like the death of Superman. We've already seen it like several times now. We don't need to see.
Well, that's because all those animated versions were terrible.
And even they already butchered the death of Superman and Batman. But okay, so going back to
I would disagree, but continue.
All right, so going back to Restore, one thing I would love to see is that even though Marvel is beating DC with its first Asian lead superhero movie, DC could beat Marvel with its first Asian lead TV show with Ryan Choi as Adam. Now, obviously, of course, what you might be thinking, why are you starting with? We've already have Ray Palmer as the Adam in Legends of Tomorrow, and of course, Zack Snyder wants to exist. So let's give us Ryan Choi, and as he said, take place in China now, and I think that would be a great idea because since with Shang-Chi already being the first ever superhero Asian lead film, Ryan Choi's Adam can be the first ever superhero TV show, considering that we never had any Asian lead superhero comic book TV show. We have Asian lead TV shows, but not based on a comic book or anything like that.
That's a really good pitch.
How much did that hurt when we saw Ryan Choi's character evolve in Zack Snyder's Justice League?
And nobody knew.
Crying out loud. Yeah, we didn't see that coming.
Yeah, nobody knew he was going to be in there until Zack Snyder just casually put it out on his Vero account. It was like, oh my gosh, Ryan
Choi's. It was such
an
easy pitch. He just tossed it right over the plate in slow-mo.
Yeah.
And they could have knocked it out of the park with that. They still could.
Yeah,
they
could definitely continue. And I think that would be so, there is an Adam on Legends of Tomorrow, to your point, but Ryan Choi, you could put him in a different situation in a different country with different, cultural things and different situations that he's a part of, and that would be a completely new story. And I think people are now kind of familiar enough with the Adam concept that they would jump on it. So I think that's a really good pitch. I would watch that show.
Oh yeah. And think there's something that I think we need to remember too, kind of going back to some of your statements. one thing that I've noticed that let's call ourselves the nerd community in general, regardless of what we like.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah, I wear it, it's a title I wear proudly. Sometimes we can fool ourselves into thinking that what we're consumed with and obsessed with and what we know about is what the mainstream is obsessed with and knows about. And oftentimes they don't. So things that seem old hat to us, we say, oh yeah, been there, done that, we've seen that done. So often there are people in the mainstream that really haven't connected yet. As popular as nerd culture is, there are still the masses are not hardcore nerds. They're just casual nerds. They're like, I like Iron Man. Yeah. I like Captain America. But they don't really know a lot about the character. They just like going to see the films. And I remember meeting a lot of Batman fans. Oh yeah, I'm really into Batman. And all they did was go to a movie theater and watch a movie once. And I'm not dismissing that, but they're not as familiar as, say, the average really hardcore Batman nerd is about specific storylines. So I think that's important to remember too. Things that may seem like they've been overplayed or done before, there are others on the planet that haven't seen that.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
their first time to
possible,
see it.
yes, if it's teased out in a different way, it's possible that it could be just as popular and just as well done and received.
Yeah, and to your point, Zack Snyder, I think, put Ryan Choi in his Justice League so that they could develop that if they wanted to. And I think he very intentionally made it Ryan. He intentionally made it Ryan Choi. He could have put Ray Palmer in there, but he chose to put Ryan Choi in there because he wanted that diversity element in there and to explore that kind of thing. So I think Ryan Choi, the TV series, the Apple TV series,
Yes.
that's a great idea.
That would be another one, a good one. It's six episodes, 10 episodes, 8 episodes, anything like that. I would watch it in a heartbeat, especially knowing that it's tied to what we've seen of his character already in Zack Snyder's Justice
Oh
League.
yeah, because he had a new position and became kind of the head of Star Labs by the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So you could take that anywhere. He could start to develop more of his nanotechnology and figure all that out, or you could see his origin and how he got interested in nanotechnology.
Because this is so related, let me say too, Zack Snyder just shows by his character. He's always thinking about the other possibilities. What a team player. Directors don't have to create their movies in such a way where it's an easy call for the studio to say, wow, you left something over here for us to take and run with it. But he does it everywhere. He does it everywhere. And no one's making him doing it. And he just leaves all of these trails that really, if the studio was serious about making money and establishing themselves as a major player with comic book films the way Marvel has, they certainly could take it and run with it. But right now they've shown very little interest in the obvious.
Because they don't like money.
They don't like money, that's right. I'm sorry, we established that already.
But that's a good point because Zack Snyder didn't have Wonder Woman fly because he wanted Patty Jenkins to be able to do that and expand that. And there were things about Atlantis that he didn't want to do with Arthur Curry and Aquaman because he wanted James Wan to be able to do that. And I think he kind of had a proto Flash suit for whoever was gonna do the Flash movie so that they could expand on the Flash mythology. So yeah, he definitely he set a lot of things in motion. It's just depending on who's gonna pick that up and take it. So yeah, I think that that's something they could pursue if they wanted to. Does anybody else have any ideas?
Yes, actually, yes, I do have. Yes, hello, hi. My name is John. First of all, I'm new to the whole Comic-Con scene.
Well, welcome. We're
Yes.
glad
Good
you're
to
here.
have you.
All right, so here's my idea. So I think HBO Max would do really well if they did another animated series by the name of Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy. And so here's the premise of the show. So in the show, there's this apocalypse coming. So there's this major apocalypse that's going to deplete all of the Earth's natural resources and vegetation. There's not going to be anything for anyone to eat or drink. And so the person who's responsible for this apocalypse is this villain called the Rot. Not sure if either of you are familiar with him.
Yeah, I'm familiar a little bit with Swamp Thing mythology. He's kind of the antithesis of Swamp Thing. Is that sort of correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
So somehow the Rot has become so powerful that he has been able to infect the Earth, the entire Earth, with a dangerous amount of pollution. And so Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy have to form an uneasy partnership because Swamp Thing is a more heroic character, whereas Poison Ivy is most often associated with Batman's Rogues Gallery. And so Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy would have kind of a brother-sister argument dynamic. And so throughout the series, they learn to get along, but the series is going to start off with them having a very rocky relationship, and it's going to be hard for both of them to get along. So the show is going to have both, fun action scenes, but it's also going to be comedic as well, with Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy's conflicting views over humanity.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well thought out too.
So Sark, how do you think we could work Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy into the Snyderverse for HBO Max? How do you think we do that?
Well, if we take the young man's suggestion, what was your first name again?
John.
John. Okay. If we take John's suggestion, and you said animated, like 2D animation.
Yes, animated. Like I was kind of thinking similar to the Harley Quinn show.
Okay, in that same thing.
Okay. It would be nice if there was a streaming service, not just nice, I think it would be profitable, if there was a streaming service that would say, Zack Snyder, come and develop some properties for us, and we'll even let you do some animated versions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's being done
Netflix.
by Netflix.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I knew that sounded familiar to me. You could develop, use the Justice League actors as voice actors, and you could develop an animated series and then very easily incorporate an animated series that you're speaking of, John, into that universe.
So do we set it in the world of Batman, since Poison Ivy is one of the big...
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I guess you could maybe use Poison Ivy's connection to, say, Ben Affleck's
Mhm.
Batman. You could use that sort of connection as a jumping off point,
Mhm.
and that could lead into a Swamp Thing, Poison Ivy adventure.
And you sound much more proficient at knowing Swamp Thing's backstory. I know very little, but it's my understanding, and I remember hearing some of the storyline. There are storylines that where Swamp Thing and Batman work together, if I'm not mistaken.
I have to be honest with you. I've only read one Swamp Thing comic.
Okay.
Ever since I was a kid, to be honest with you, I actually grew up with Batman. Really, first of all, I really like your hat and your shirt. Great, you have a good sense of fashion.
I'll pay you after. Thank you.
Checks in the mail.
But to be honest with you, I've only read like one Swamp Thing comic. I mean, I really don't know where these ideas are coming from.
Oh, they're creative ideas, but it is my understanding that there are some storylines, established storylines from even decades ago. I remember hearing Kevin Smith talk about one, and it was extremely moving. Now, this is some years ago, and my memory is very selective at this point. But I remember thinking, wow, it made me care about Swamp Thing. I didn't care anything about Swamp Thing, and I thought, I want to read that. So there are stories that exist in which the two have worked together.
Yeah, I believe there are comics out there. It's so funny you say that. I went to a Dragon Con panel a long time ago where it was like a really scholarly presentation about a Swamp Thing storyline. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to read Swamp Thing. This is really good. Like, it talked about the art and everything. If you're interested in Swamp Thing, definitely check out the Swamp Thing TV series. I think it's on HBO Max. So they have, you could even tie the Swamp Thing TV series into the DCEU and just use those same actors. See,
I honestly think
we're connecting universes now. But that Swamp Thing TV series, unfortunately, got canceled a little early, so it sort of ends incomplete.
I mean, did it get a lot of negative reviews?
No, here, she's being nice. It got, the plug was pulled on it the day that it was released.
It was
The
handled
first episode, it was strange.
Never even had a shot.
Never got a shot.
Never even had a shot. And I remember my wife and I said, well, it must really suck because, I mean, why would you pull the plug? And they're just about to debut the first episode. We were blown away by the quality.
It's really good.
It is excellent.
And Blue Devil shows up, which is really cool. Like, I mean, it's very, very good.
It is so good,
If you're
yes.
interested in Swamp Thing, definitely check that out. But so I think what we do is we take Ben Affleck's Batman and we have him somehow connecting to Poison Ivy.
Why not?
And
Yes.
there's some, but he doesn't have to be there long. Maybe he's in a 2-minute scene, kind of introducing the problem. It's not a Batman storyline,
Mhm.
but he introduces us to the concept of Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy, and then pairs them up together, and they go solve some issues with the.
I think also too, I think other members of the Justice League could appear as well. That could add to the story. Like, for example, the Flash or Wonder Woman, and some of the Robins as well, like Nightwing or Red Robin. Any one of the Robins. Not only Batman, but you don't have to include the entire Justice League, but I think if you include a few other Justice League members, that might help the story along.
I'm really liking John's show here. And I think if you're talking about environment, you gotta put Aquaman in there.
Oh, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
he's gotta be in there, I think, a little bit, even if like, maybe his issue is like the oceans are starting to dry up a
Sure.
little bit. So then that could affect the plant life in the swamps of Swamp Thing. So I think this is really, we're starting to roll somewhere with this
Okay,
idea.
Also, if we're still on the topic of the environment, you know how sometimes there's forest fires, so the forest fires burn everything away, but it still helps the environment.
Right.
I think also too, you might want to include the hero Firestorm, because
Ooh.
Forest fires.
Yeah.
Firestorm could be helpful, even if he's not in the show that much. I think the inclusion of Firestorm could be, add more to the symbolism of the environment and nature aspect.
I like that, and you could also, because part of Firestorm is Dr. Stein.
Yes, exactly.
So he could
Yes.
add that sort of scientific element to that problem and sort of solve some of those issues. Yeah, you could go somewhere with that. I think that's a really, really good pitch.
And I think they need some creative talent at Warner Brothers, I'm pretty sure. So you need to apply.
You need to submit a letter to say this is what you should do next. So I think there is some sort of like survey thing that you can fill out with HBO Max. I remember seeing like a link someone sent
Really?
me one
Okay.
time. So I need to get on there and be like, you need to do this and this and this. So I'm going to take all of our ideas. I'll credit John for that one. So I think those are good. One of the things that I would pitch if it was me, because I love Amy Adams' Lois Lane so much, because they were gonna at one point do a Metropolis TV series based with the
remember
showrunners
hearing
of
that,
Gotham
yes.
on Fox. So they
Yes.
were gonna do a Metropolis TV show that was gonna pair her up with Lex Luthor for some reason. I was like, that's a terrible idea. But I think you could have a Lois Lane show with her investigating something. You don't have to have Superman. Maybe you can see a little glimpse of him every now and then. But she's an investigator. She's an investigative reporter. You could have her out solving a mystery. So I think that would be a good way to use, a multi, Oscar-nominated actress in your arsenal to really tell a cool, like, 6-episode story.
Now,
Maybe
one,
she's telling a Swamp Thing story, John.
We're getting Lois in the show now. I like your thinking.
Okay.
This is how we do it. We're
It's
getting
like a
in
crossover,
here.
yeah.
We're getting in here. Ooh, they could cross over. I like this. We're creating a whole HBO Max universe now. I like
go
it.
figure, wow.
Actually,
I mean-
that could also too, if you have the Snyderverse and the HBO Max verse, that could also move a multiverse movie along.
Oh yeah. How can we get Ryan Choi's show into this show? How do we connect that? I don't know if the nanotechnology can help with the environment somehow. There's
You could always have Ryan Trump be like a special guest, like he could be, like he found a way to, he could be like one of those, like have the solution, like at the end of the day, she's like, okay, this is the grand plan, I have the technology, and this is how we're gonna save the planet,
Yeah, I think Ryan Choi works together with Dr. Stein. They come up with the science-y mumbo jumbo because you got to have those characters on there that figure
I
it
want to go
out.
back to that about the Metropolis thing, like you said. I think that would be great, but you know what? What if we did something like we did with Gotham and all? But that way we can finally bring back J.K. Simmons' Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, we
And-
want to see more of him.
Yeah, and not only that, but instead of like Gotham was like the origins of the villains and all that, you can show like the villains already being the villains. Like you can bring the Batman's villains, but now that they already are and they're much older and everything, so instead of like redoing all of their origins again, you already have like Bane's already Bane, Ivy is already Poison
I'm
Ivy,
good
and
with
so
that.
forth.
I'm good with that. So has everyone heard the rumor? So of course we know that it's been announced that there's a Batgirl movie
Right.
Yeah.
on HBO Max. All right, and so Leslie Grace has been cast in that role, but has anyone else heard the rumor? And I don't know if it's been confirmed yet that
J.K. Simmons
they're
is in
looking.
it.
Yes, that J.K.
They don't want to
Simmons
have
is
anything to do with
returning.
the Snyderverse, but
Right, they're returning as
they're gonna
Commissioner
take
Gordon.
J.K. Simmons in there.
Yes, I mean, so yeah, that's a perfect one. I would love to see that. Yes, and I'm so glad it looks like they're getting him back, because that does give more hope that they will truly restore the Snyderverse in a very official capacity and release Justice League 2, Justice League 3
I
eventually.
think you could tell a Commissioner Gordon story.
Oh,
There's
yes.
got to be some sort of
There's more there, yes.
story that you could tell.
I'm a crazy Gotham fan, but yes, there's much more that can be told about
Oh, yeah,
a different slice of life from him.
yeah, there's a lot you could do with that, so you could definitely.
Can I throw one out there? that I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
love to
that's
see?
why we're here, let's do it.
Every time I watch Man of Steel, I grew up, I was a hardcore Star Wars fan. I still love Star Wars. I'm just not into Star Wars as much as, say, Batman and the world of DC. But as a boy, of course, I'm showing my age, I was little. I was a little guy when Star Wars The New Hope, the first one, came out. And didn't know that there was even going to be a second one, just was so caught up in it. When Man of Steel comes on, you know, we only see it maybe once every 6 months, a year, we'll get it out and watch it again. And I always forget that the opening sequences take place on another planet. And I'm like, wow, this universe here would make an amazing movie by itself. Zack Snyder did a phenomenal job, and now that we know that he actually made pitches for Star Wars stories at times in his career, and
They passed on it, what the heck?
what in the
Why?
world? What in
Why
the
would
world?
you do
Because
that?
it gives me that feel. I get the same chill
Yeah.
when I watch those opening sequences of Man of Steel. And I've even said this to my wife. This actually is more compelling to me than the Star Wars storyline. Just this little bit that I'm seeing here. So I would love to see. I know we had a show called Krypton, which we did enjoy. We loved it. I felt like there were a lot of Snyder references, whether they meant to or not.
Yeah, it sort of felt like it was.
Yeah, it had that feel to it, but a different Krypton-based series, more looking like the one we saw at the beginning of Man of Steel. I would love that.
So what would you want to see in a Krypton show based in Man of Steel's Krypton?
Well, see, I haven't thought the plan out as well as
I
John has.
have a few ideas, and this is going to be biased for me because I host a podcast about Supergirl
I'm curious to
once a
hear
week.
this.
But so in most iterations of the Supergirl mythology, Kara is usually older than Kal-El. She usually, when he's born and shipped off to Earth, she's usually, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. So she's like in it, part of the culture. All her friends and family are in Krypton. I think it would be really cool because I have a feeling Zack Snyder was kind of playing with the idea of Supergirl based on Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, and they even did a Man of Steel prequel comic that was all about Kara Zor-El.
Okay.
So you could tell a story of Kara. I'll have to send it to you. It's great. It's written by Sterling Gates, who's like the best. But you could tell a Kara story before she becomes Supergirl.
Sure.
So you could put Kara in the world of Krypton before it blows up, and she has to be sent off
Yes.
as well. So
I would love
you
that.
could tell a Kara story. You could also maybe tell the story of the council and how it gets
Yes,
formed,
yeah.
and sort of the sides back and
politics.
forth of. You could do a political film about the mistakes they made that Krypton
Sure.
ended up.
The decisions that led to the creation of the Genesis Chamber.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You could do all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that could be teased.
There's a lot you could. I'm kind of like an old romantic. I would want to see how Jor-El and Laura meet.
Yes, I was just about to say yes.
What's their story?
I
There's
know
got to be more to that
We
story.
can't make Russell Crowe younger, but we could cast someone.
Yeah, you can cast a young Jor-El.
Yes.
A young Laura.
Younger, I was more like thinner.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thinner.
Thinner.
Thinner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you saw how he is now.
Yeah. He's
Well, they have all that technology now where you can
Sure.
make
De-age,
Luke,
right.
make Luke Skywalker younger.
Hey, since we're on the topic of origins, I think I do have another little idea in my noodle.
Go for it.
So you guys are talking about the Supergirl and her origins, right? Okay, what if we did a series or something? Maybe this could be a radio show, but what if we did a series? So there's already Gotham. We already have the origins of Bruce Wayne a little bit in there. What if we do like a whole nother timeline, but more in the past? What if we actually did a story focused on Martha and Thomas Wayne and how the presence of the Wayne family has affected how the history of Gotham has been shaped?
Ooh, I like that.
I'm on board for that immediately.
That way we get what's his face who played Thomas Wayne in
Jeffrey
Batman.
Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. We can
Yes.
get him back with that chick from The Walking Dead. What is her name?
Was it Lori Cohen?
Yes.
Lauren Collins.
Lauren
Yes.
Cohen, okay.
Yes, we can get them back as Thomas and Martha Wayne. I love that idea. That's a great idea.
And on that note also, they both have expressed, I believe it was just recently on an interview or a podcast they appeared on together, they both expressed that they would love to take on the roles of the Flashpoint Thomas and Martha.
Yeah.
They would be perfect for that.
Yes, they would. I would love to see that.
Yeah, so I think having them back would be great because they're both great actors, and
Mhm.
you could really tell that story. I mean, like the Dark Knight trilogy sort of gets into that a little bit, but you don't really get to meet Thomas and Martha Wayne as
Right.
much. Their presence is felt
Mhm.
very much in those films, but it would be really cool to see, like, you know, I guess I'm into, like, how did these characters meet?
Yes.
What's the meet cute between Thomas and Martha Wayne? How did they get to know each other? So I think that would be really cool. That's another way you could even bring Ben Affleck back. He could,
Mhm.
you know, tell the story of his
Right.
parents.
In
You know,
flashback
yeah.
style,
Yeah, oh,
yes.
You know, I got another one. Alright, so if we're gonna go all full origins and all that stuff, how about we do something like Atlantis before it got sunk? Like during the early
Oh,
days
yes.
of Atlantis, think of it as like sort of like a Game of Thrones style,
Mhm.
but set in Atlantis, back with the Seven Kingdoms, you know, how it was before the whole King Triton and the
Mhm.
in the fall of everything. I mean, you could have everything. You could have political statements. You know, you could have like probably some battles and wars between the Seven Kingdoms, you know,
Mhm.
fighting it out. And then we get to see, and then of course you can also do like an aftermath, like still before Aquaman, but like you know the evolution of the kingdoms as time goes by, like
Mhm.
how they were from what they once were to what they were. But still, it's either. But at the same time, of course, we still want to see like what was the Seven Kingdoms in Atlantis was like before they all fell into the ocean.
That's a really good idea
Mhm. I love
because
it.
in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Diana talks about the Atlanteans before they sunk into
Mhm.
the ocean.
Mhm.
So you could tell that story. That hadn't been told as of
Mhm.
yet. I don't know if it's going to be in the next Aquaman
Right,
film,
yeah, I thought about that too.
but you could definitely expand that.
But many of us really like that Indiana Jones vibe that we got in Aquaman, the first Aquaman movie. And so, yeah, the explorations of those worlds would be fantastic, yeah.
Yeah,
love that.
I would definitely watch that. And I don't know how who would be in that show. I guess you would need Volko maybe.
Mhm.
You could have Volko.
Volko.
Mira could be in there.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know if we could get Jason Momoa, but we could have some of the Atlanteans.
Well, then
Mhm.
again, since this was like thousands of years ago, pretty sure most of these characters.
Oh,
were
that,
Oh,
that
you're
would
going back
probably
that
be
far, okay.
that would probably be before
so
that. Yeah.
it wouldn't. So it would be weird. Like wait, because I'm pretty sure they never did say like these Atlanteans, unlike Amazonians, they can stay like the same age for a very very long time. They never say that. And because also remember Aquaman is half Atlantean, so I'm pretty sure also. So yeah, but because this is like you said, this is said thousand. When Diana already said like. When they formed the alliance in the Snyderverse, of course, they were already still in land and all.
Right.
So yeah, so you can't have like Volko and all that. Because I'm
True.
pretty sure Volko wouldn't even because if he was alive during that time, he would have been super old
Oh,
at
that's
present
true.
time.
That's true. So yeah,
Good point.
maybe you would have to either pull from comic book mythology to find somebody, or you would just create new characters.
Create
I
new-
think. I
yeah,
think you
yeah,
could.
it's
I
not
think you
been
could
done
do
yet.
that. Yeah.
I mean, you could always say like you could have like families, like maybe great families of some of their
Right.
of like you know like Mira's family and Aquaman's family, of course, like their great grandson. Now you can either have them as the main focus or just like side characters and all.
Yeah, I think that could work. That's sort of what they did with the Krypton
I was thinking the
series.
same thing, and that's actually one of the things that I enjoyed. I never thought about Kal-El's grandfather. It never
Yeah.
even dawned on me, and so I don't know how much new territory they were forging at the time. But yeah, we enjoyed the series
And that kind of
tremendously.
idea, like you can still have a little bit of like an Aquaman feel to
Mhm,
it,
oh,
but
sure.
he doesn't have to have a big presence. But you still kind of get like on Krypton, like Superman was a thing, but
Did
he
you
wasn't the big focus.
Did you get the impression that related to that in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Snyder was hinting at the stylized A, of his belt buckle, possibly wasn't an A, like we see it as an A, and hey, it stands for Aquaman, but similarly to the S not really being an S, it had history behind it, and it represented hope
Yeah.
on Krypton. Did you get the feeling that they were doing that?
They could use something like that
Mhm.
to explore some more of the mythology
Mhm.
of Atlantis and sort of explain some of the
Sure.
the iconic things from Aquaman and really bring it in there. I would love something like that. You know, I don't know that you could bring it in with a show that we're pitching right now, but if you could do something that, you know, like an Aquaman related show that included like Lori Lemaris and some of the other
Oh, that's a name I haven't heard
Atlantean
in a long time.
mermaids and things in
Mhm.
the DC world, I would be really interested in that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I read some, you know, Supergirl Silver Age comics, and one of her boyfriends is Jero the Merboy. So I would love a live action. If we're pitching ideas, let's get Jero the Merboy in a TV series. That would be into that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff with Aquaman and Atlantis you could do.
Yeah, there's so many, let's face it, so many characters that are deep pulls from the DC world. You know, we've got, what, 80-something years of, you know, storytelling to pull from. I see a hand out here.
Well, I guess on that note, so there's a character called La Borinqueña, and she's a superhero from Puerto Rico. And so she has lots of powers, but one of them is like controlling hurricanes and the winds and stuff. And so, like my brother's first pitch with,
Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy.
yeah. So I would have maybe an episode or something where Poison Ivy, she's like the president of the United States, and she's dealing with like climate change and lots of hurricanes coming to the U.S. And so she finds a way to like have a machine that like pushes all the hurricanes into the Caribbean where they are already. And La Borinqueña, she like has to make a deal, like I'll help you with all your issues with the environment by like getting the water to all the areas that are droughted or whatever. If you know, don't do that, you know, let's like make an alliance together. And so, because La Borinqueña, I don't know if she's in DC yet, but DC and La Borinqueña did a combo thing
Oh,
together.
cool.
So it would be cool to see like a Latina and like, you know, like a woman superhero, you know, doing stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe they can come with like Aquaman together with the water and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not as huge of a fan as my brother, but we got to talking about it, and so I thought about La Borinqueña.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of like big broad strokes up here, and you guys are like detail,
Well,
which is awesome.
I think you could even pair her up maybe with like Mira, and you could do some
Mhm.
sort of like, you know, film or TV show with Mira. But you could definitely work her into our Swamp Thing story. You could work her in with our Aquaman situation. I think that would be really, really cool, because that would, you know, especially if you did a TV series. I mean, every episode could introduce some new character who could come and help out with the situation. That would build some of that mythology out for a TV series. So that would be awesome.
You
I'd be
own
happy.
these properties, use them.
Captain Planet is something I think about too when I think of La Borinqueña. Like, yeah, like you're saying, introducing different characters per episode, or like different environmental issues as well, as because that's kind of what's happening on our Earth right now. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If she could be worked into DC stuff, I think that would be really cool.
And your brother and sister, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the Flash movie, I think the Muschiettis, they're brother and sister. Originally, I thought they were husband and wife, but I think they're brother and sister, aren't they?
Oh,
Wow.
and also too, she's older, I'm younger.
I'm 12 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be the next directing team for a DC
Yeah,
I
film.
am a
Yeah.
filmmaker, so.
Oh, okay.
He comes up with ideas.
So
Okay,
we're
well.
just gonna give you all these ideas. You can run with them. Just give us a little bit of a credit, you know, there at the end. Just put our names in there. That I don't even need to be paid. Well,
Just the
I shouldn't say
opportunity.
that. Maybe I'll get
No,
royalties.
but you said there's like at Warner Brothers, like, because I tried to work for them as like an assistant, but like that is there a role where it's like where he would be like a creative consultant? Like I don't even know if that's something that exists.
Some films do have creative consultants. For the superhero stuff, they will have somebody that is more knowledgeable about things. With Zack Snyder, he kind of knew pretty much everything.
Yes.
So they didn't really need somebody like that. But sometimes for those kind of things, they will work with DC Comics to sort of figure things out. I know Jim Lee is really active in some of these things, so there's probably no better creative consultant
Sure.
than Jim Lee. But I feel like we all could be, you know, we're not Jim Lee, but I think we could
We
be.
demonstrated tonight.
We could be
Yes,
creative
we could do it.
consultants. Yeah, for sure.
Alright, you know what? speaking of surprise characters from Zack Snyder, obviously, of course, like we said, we had Martian Manhunter, Ryan Choi, but of course there was one more character that Zack Snyder wanted to introduce. He didn't have the time. He didn't know how he was going to fit into this character. And even though we're already getting a TV show based on a certain ones, it's not the main character. Of course, we're referring to Jon Stewart's Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Because we already know how DC was with their first Green Lantern and all with Hal Jordan. But the less we talk about the better. But,
You weren't great
but
at that.
here's the thing. He already had an actor in mind to play Jon Stewart.
Oh yeah, he shot a scene with him.
Wayne
Yeah.
Carr, Wayne
Yeah.
T. Carr, I believe
Yeah,
is his name.
and even though they're doing HBO Max is doing a Green Lantern show, it's not Jon Stewart or anything. It's Guy Gardner and the original Green Lantern himself.
Oh, Alan Scott.
Alan Scott and all
Mhm.
that. And I'm like, okay, so you're skipping Hal Jordan, who was at the time, of course, the most popular and most recognized, and Jon Stewart, again, another most iconic one and all. So I felt like, and yes, you're getting a black Green Lantern in the Air Force, but it's not even Jon Stewart, it's John Diggle. So I think it's about time you show love to this character and for Jon Stewart
Way
because
past
he
it.
was a big part of a lot of people who grew up with the Justice League
The
animated show.
animated
and all.
universe, yeah.
So it's about time you bring him into it, and also the fact that we can say he's the first Green Lantern human and not Hal Jordan, and for Snyder's version, and from there we get to see him in all these space adventures, while also meeting with the other lanterns that we never got to see live answer, like the Red Lanterns and the White
Ooh,
Lanterns,
yes.
the Emerald Lanterns and the Orange Lanterns and so forth and all.
Okay, I have two pitches
Okay.
with this.
Let's hear it.
So you could do a space adventure with Jon Stewart and how he becomes his origin and how he
Mhm.
becomes Green Lantern, because they did establish in Zack Snyder's Justice League Green Lanterns did exist.
Yes.
We saw one, Darkseid, was looking for the ring, trying to see.
Right.
I think it might have chosen. I don't know if that's debatable on whether or not the ring would choose Darkseid. But so you could do a space adventure with Jon Stewart, up in space with the little blue guys from OA, the
Mhm.
Guardians.
Mhm.
But what I would do if I could, so in comic book mythology and DC Comics, there's a very famous sort of road trip between Green Lantern and Green Arrow.
Oh, right.
So there's a big series with that, and I would love it if they would introduce, you could use the guy that Zack Snyder used for Jon Stewart, and then you could also introduce Green Arrow and somehow have them team up. It would actually even be cool if they could take Green Arrow to space.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're gonna dream big,
Sure, why
send
not?
Green Arrow to space. I don't know how well his arrows would do up there.
Right.
But maybe you could make that work. And also, selfishly, if you introduced Green Arrow, then you could also then bring in Black Canary. So
Oh,
you could
yeah.
you pull
One of your
Black
favorites.
Canary from the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie.
Oh, yes, yes.
So
I
then
didn't
you
even
could
think
start.
about that.
Then you could start maybe, bringing some of those Birds of Prey characters. So
Yes.
I think there's
I would be all
the
for that.
Jon Stewart inclusion could open up a lot of
Mhm.
doors. So I think that's a really good idea.
I just felt like, Jon Stewart has been misrepresented in live action format. We never really get to see him. There's been like little hints and all. Of course, if you remember in the Elseworld crossover, when they brought back the 90s Flash, he was like, John, where's your ring and all that and all. And of course, he's talking about
Oh, that's right, yes.
Jon
Okay.
Stewart and all.
Mhm.
And again, we've already have Hal Jordan, and I know they didn't interpret him and all, and Ryan Reynolds already moved on for that and all. And of course, and like I said, even though they're finally bringing the lanterns, and with Stargirl introducing Alan Scott's daughter as the new Green Lantern, and with the TV show introducing, instead of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, it's Alan Scott and Guy Gardner and all. I feel like everyone has already gotten a live action version of these Green Lanterns, except for Jon Stewart and all. Like, yes, I know you also have like Jessica Cruz and all, but they're like way much left. We could say they're like too early.
That's season 2 of our Green Lantern show.
Yeah.
We'll bring Jessica Cruz in season 2.
Yeah.
I think the idea of exploring like the different lantern mythology. David mentioned the blue lanterns and the red lanterns, and I think they even have black ones. You could
Oh
do
yeah, the
Yes.
dark,
the blackest night kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Mhm.
You could do a lot of stuff just by introducing. They did it. There was a Green Lantern animated show that I think is on HBO Max. If you haven't watched it, give it a shot. It's actually pretty good. But they explored some of like the blue lanterns and the red
Okay.
lanterns
There's
and
also
stuff like
white lanterns.
White
Mhm.
lanterns, yes. There's a whole-
Which I believe are the opposite of the black ones. The white ones represent
Death.
life.
Ah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I think that would be really cool to explore, use John Stewart to explore the different kinds of Green Lanterns. So that's a really cool idea. think
And I
we
love your
definitely-
idea about the kind of that retro, the pairing of Green Lantern and Green Arrow, because that was a big thing. I want to say in the early 70s.
Yeah, I think
It was when
maybe
that was
the 70s,
introduced.
yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know if Warner Brothers would be willing to go green because we've already established that they don't love.
They don't like
Money,
money.
yeah, so
That's
anyway.
a recurring,
Sorry, I couldn't
recurring
resist.
theme. They are not about that green.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I think that's really, really cool.
Wait,
A
so
Green
when
Lantern John
when
Stewart.
you say that Warner Brothers doesn't like money, what do you mean by that?
So that's my personal opinion based on the events that have occurred. So by all metrics we know, we haven't been told officially by HBO Max, but Zack Snyder's Justice League did well pretty much everywhere.
Globally, yes.
It was being talked about in America when it came out. It did gangbusters numbers overseas and all around the world. And for some reason, HBO Max didn't want to tell us how many
They
people
just
watched
been
it. And,
Mysteriously silent about it.
very silent about it, and I think the week it came out, what's her face? I forget her name.
And Sarnoff.
Yeah, it doesn't. She's not even that important. I don't even care to know her
But I
name.
always remember the name of a villain.
Yes.
And so yeah,
yes.
it's easy to recall.
So Ann Sarnoff of Warner Brothers, the weekend that Zack Snyder's Justice League came out, she did an interview with like Variety or
I
Hollywood
believe.
Road Report or something, and she shut down any hope for a continuation of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
How did she do that?
I'm sorry?
Well, you said that she shut down any hope of a...
She basically said we're not going to do any more of that universe.
Well,
that's-
that's what all of us would like to know.
That's the question. If it
And
did
hence-
so well, why wouldn't they want to pursue it?
And hence, that's why it's become a popular phrase. Warner Brothers apparently does not love money. And so, that, of course, we're saying that in jest, but there is a bizarre concern on the part of many a fan.
Yeah,
as to why-
if it's successful and people like it, why
what's the
wouldn't you
issue?
keep making it?
and everyone wants to play.
This is the reason why, and this is how they explained it. When you, looking back at the beginning of Man of Steel, of course, obviously that film was kind of a divisive film because, you know, some people loved it, some people hated it and all, the way they interpreted it. But the thing was is that when Zack Snyder, if you know his past work, he mostly does like very slow motion, very dark films and all. And so, even though Batman v Superman made a lot of money, a lot of people hated had negative reaction to it because it was too long. They didn't like it all dark and gritty and all, and so they were so embarrassed. It's like when before Wonder Woman, of course, when they saw how Wonder Woman was more positive and more successful because it was so light and hopeful and all, they did this whole thing as like, oh, we're gonna rebrand it. Now we're gonna be more light and hopeful, and we don't want Zack Snyder involved and all, because otherwise.
As if his films were not hopeful. Which they were.
Yeah,
They were
Batman v
incredibly
Superman is
hopeful.
actually like the most hopeful
Yes,
film
and
I've
so
ever seen.
there was a narrative, and I believe, I'm convinced to this day it was a false narrative. We were told, you're not supposed to like these films. They're bad films. Warner Brothers wants to go in a different direction, and I still don't buy it. With the amount of money that they made, maybe they were not the most lucrative films in the world, but they certainly weren't duds. They weren't duds on the level of some of the films that have come out since Warner Brothers
Or to
decided
the level of the early
the early
MCU.
Marvel films, yes.
Captain
exactly.
America: The First Adventure. People don't remember, but it only made
We don't like to
300
talk about it.
That movie only made $300 million
Ouch.
worldwide.
Ouch.
It was a bona fide flop,
But
but they kept going with
But
it.
what Marvel did, to their credit, is they said, we have a game plan, and this is our vision, and we believe that the quality of our work will stand the test of time, and people will get on board. And that's what happened.
And that gamble paid off for
And
them.
it did pay off. And had Warner Brothers done the same thing and just stuck with it, they were much more successful with their earliest entries into the DCEU, the establishment of a continued shared universe than Marvel was. And why they pulled the plug, I'm just not really sure. It just didn't make sense. There were negative voices out there, but by the time Batman v Superman came on the scene, the negative impact of social media was being felt much more than it had been in earlier years. And I believe that there was some level of an intent to destroy those films before they even were hatched. I remember it. It was so vivid. It's hard to not talk about Batman v Superman when we're talking about the Snyderverse.
Sure, yeah.
And so I remember living through that. I was so excited about the film, and I remember I would see statements made in the press. And of course, when I say press, that's it's a stretch,
It's a
probably.
loose term.
Yeah, because we're talking about a lot of bloggers and a lot of cheesy websites that just had a voice. They had gained a voice, and they would say, "This is gonna suck." It was great journalism, by the way. This is gonna suck. This is just gonna be
That's
terrible.
actually not that far off.
No, I mean that was the level. That was the level of rhetoric that you were hearing.
Great,
And I
great
remember
film analysis.
I was so concerned and confused. I was like, the movie hasn't even been filmed yet. What do you? But this kind of tone continued all the way up to the release of the film, and it was almost as if the film did not have a chance with the masses. And that second weekend showed, I believe, the impact that social media had. I think the second weekend would have
What's
been much
interesting
more.
about that, though, is that people, years later, even now, still, when I come to conventions like this, we always get into some kind of argument or debate about
Mhm.
Batman v Superman. It's still a film that's being talked about today. You know, some movies, they show up there, people talk about them for 3 months, and then everybody forgets about them.
Mhm.
Batman v Superman got people kind of invested in that. And so I think if they had continued with that, they would have built that more investment that Marvel had done. And so that's why I really wish they would restore the Snyderverse, because so many people, and I think that Warner Brothers doesn't really acknowledge this like they should, but people had gotten invested
Mhm.
in the Snyderverse. And I think if they continued it, they would see success.
And it does concern me sometimes. We will hear that rhetoric of Man of Steel was divisive, Batman v Superman was divisive. I'm still convinced they weren't divisive. I think they were divisive voices that were louder than other voices.
Yeah.
They were the most predominant voices. And I don't think they were in the majority. We used to talk about that back then. I said this loudmouth minority seems to be controlling the narrative.
Well, you even saw that with Justice League's reception when it came out in 2017. Batman v Superman made almost $900 million.
Mhm.
Justice League came out, and I think it only made $500 million
Oh,
because
God.
people saw it and said, "No, I'm not going to go back
Yeah,
and see that again." So you saw that, like, what people were saying was not actually true.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't think it lined up with reality. So, yes, to answer your question, I know we've been going in about this in a roundabout way, but because there's a lot to cover. But yes, we say that in jest because it's clear that Warner Brothers is not responding the way that we think that you would.
It's out of spite, really, I think is what it is. They,
Like against the fans?
yeah, they don't care what the fans think. They're just gonna tell us what we're supposed to like, and they're just gonna give it to us. So it's a weird business.
That's very manipulative. As a business, you can't survive if you tell people what to like and
Absolutely.
what not to like. No, if anything, that sounds like a communist government.
You know what? I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you too, yes.
I agree with that 100%. Well, I think, so I have a little bit of a thing to give away. So, Sark, I'm gonna let you decide this. So who do you think in here had the best pitch for,
Oh, wow.
to restore the Snyderverse?
Well, just on the basis of his ability to articulate it quickly, I'm going to have to give the nod to John. John he had it all planned out, and
John, this is a collection of stickers from Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's kind of a limited edition sort of thing. It was
Limited edition, really?
so it was a charity for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is a thing that's very special to Zack Snyder because his daughter had committed suicide.
Oh my goodness.
So hold on to those stickers because those are.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and
Thank you.
participating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your pitches, David. Hopefully one day we'll get to see a Ryan Choi
great
TV
ideas.
series.
Yeah, that's hard to pick a winner out of those
Yeah.
three.
So those stickers you don't see those in the vendor area over there.
Yeah, I thought she had brought them for me, so I'm a little disappointed. So.
You want a Zack Snyder football? I'm not doing anything with it. It's just sitting in my room. But yeah, thank you guys for coming, and hopefully one day they'll restore the Snyderverse, and we'll all get to see our pitches come to life.
Wouldn't it be nice? Yes.